Hey all, welcome back to my channel. Hope everybody is doing well. So today I will be covering another important concept of embedding, which I call it personally as a language of the AI world. So from my past video on the tokenization, you might have understood that AI doesn't understand words like we do. Rather, it converts everything into some numbers, and that's how we have seen the tokenization comes into play. For example, the above sentence, cat sits on the mat. Let me take a marker here. The cat sits on the mat. So each word, or rather, I would say token, is actually mapped to certain numbers. It corresponds to certain numbers. I've taken this as a random values. But the essence is every token is actually converted into a series of number where these numbers correspond to the position of those tokens into the model vocabulary, right? But there is a very basic question that how does the model understand the semantic meaning behind each of these tokens? That's where the embedding comes in. Now with this, let's recall about the analogy that we had covered in my very first video on attention is all you need video. So I have shared the link in the description. If you want, you can refer that link for the details. But let's try to cover it on a broad level. Let me take a marker here. Okay, so if you recall, so we had mapped 5 students with respect to certain parameters as defined in the table here, right? And we had based on their interest towards each parameter, there were certain values assigned, right? As you can see in the table. Now, if you want to visualize it, the best way is to treat these values as coordinates in a 7-dimension space considering the 7 parameters and considering these properties number, right? And every individual will lie according to their coordinates in that 7-dimensional space. Also, based on the similarity in the properties that are defined by the interaction matrix, every individual will influence one another to give up the new values. But before we get into the interaction matrix transformed values, let's take a step back and see through how does it look like in a visual way. So this is how I have considered. I have considered a 3-dimensional space, of course, because of the software limitation. And you can see how these individuals, with respect to their respective coordinates, every individual will be lying somewhere in this multidimensional space, right? Okay. So with these students, you can visualize it. These students will be equivalent to the tokens in the sentence, right? And 7 parameters that we have been talking about, it could be equivalent to the number of dimensions. I have considered 512 parameters, taking reference from the master paper, attention is all you need, but it could be anything. 512 parameters could be anything. It could be hundreds of thousands of the parameters depending upon the AI model capability, right? And these values that you are seeing here, property values, basically these are called as the weight values, right? And these weight values defines the properties of each of these tokens. Now, one very basic question it might come into your mind that how are these weight values defined? So basically, these weight values are defined during the training phase. So these are initialized with the random values, and then they are during the training phase of the model. These values are revised with respect to the properties, right? Okay. Now, if that is the individual level of properties that we saw, right? But how about how these values gets the contextual information, right? So this contextual information is received with the help of an attention mechanism basically it's the heart of that transformer architecture. So with the help of this mechanism, every when the model is fed with these with these individuals or with these tokens, which have its own individual level of properties, every individual interact with each other like how I have shown here. So this arrow will be like Monica to not only Monica Phoebe, but Monica to Chandler, Monica to Rachel also. But due to this, due to this graphic limitation, I could not represent it in the slide, but you can very well imagine. So every individual is interacting with every other individual, and based on the similarities in the properties, their values gets changed, their value gets revised. So I have represented here in the second table, so you can see how are these values have been transformed, right? Now visually, if I want to represent it, so the initial representation would be transformed into this new representation. So Monica, Chandler, Joey would lie closer to each other in relative to the other individuals. So if you want to get into the details of how this has been calculated mathematically, so you can check out my video that is mentioned in the description. Now coming back to the real world, we have seen how this AI model, when uh, any sentence is fed to an AI model. So all first of all, these individual tokens would be converted to a certain would be assigned with certain token ID. Token ID is nothing but the vocabulary position in the vocabulary of the model, and then each token ID will be associated with a list of numbers that you are seeing here, right? These list of numbers is actually the coordinates, the list of coordinates representing that particular token. And for this video representation, I have taken a number of dimensions of 512 as reference from the paper, but it could be anything as mentioned earlier. Let me help you visualize this, how these words, how these tokens would be represented in a high dimension space, right? So here it is done in 3 dimension, but you can imagine when you have hundreds of 500 of dimensions, how precisely the words could be mapped geometrically, right? Due to the lack of video capability, I'm representing it in the 3 dimension space, right? And there is one point to be noted is each of these dimension could potentially correspond to certain parameter, let's say gender, let's say strength, let's say category of mammal, or let's say material, and so on. I mean, there are thousands of parameters of features uh, which can help define any token, any word uh, with respect to its properties. Now there is a very small video. I have attached a snapshot of a small video. This I have taken from a very famous YouTube channel of Three Blue One Brown. So it will help you to visualize what exactly I want to say. So you can see how these are how the every individual words are represented in a multi-dimension, in the 3D dimension space, right? And words with similar meaning, with a similar semantic meaning, would lie closer to each other, either lie closer to each other or will have a similar direction. All right. So here we are, from the segmentation of the text into tokens to the multi-dimensional representation of the words. Both tokenization and embeddings form powerful concepts that enable any AI model to capture the meaning and to capture the context of the sentence or of the text. So hope you were able to follow me through. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will try to answer them as possible. Second, if you like this video, please do not forget to subscribe to stay updated with such kind of videos. Thank you.